Hello and welcome to this English lesson that isn't just about fruit. It's about fruit and some little phrases, some idioms that we have in English that have fruit in them. I think you'll probably know some of these, but we'll see as the lesson goes along. This lesson was requested, and I think a lot of people will appreciate it. I do have to say, though, most of the fruit I will talk about will be the fruit that's common here in Canada. There may be fruits on this list that you don't recognize. I think you'll recognize most of them, but there might be some that you think are missing. But anyways, let's do a lesson about fruit and let's learn some idioms about fruit along the way. So the first fruit I picked is the apple. I think you all know what an apple is. I did want to talk a little bit though about where we get apples. We buy our apples at the farmer's market. Apples are grown on apple trees in an apple orchard. I'm not sure if you were familiar with the word orchard. An orchard is a large field, I guess, filled with apple trees. Apples are delicious. Jen eats an apple every day. I don't. I should probably eat more apples. But that does remind me of an idiom that I didn't put in this lesson, and that's an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So there's this saying that if you eat an apple every day, you'll be healthy and you won't ever need to see a doctor. When you eat an apple, you eventually have an apple core when you're done eating. So after you've eaten all of the good parts of the apple, what's left is called an apple core. We have a phrase in English, a bad apple, or a rotten apple. I use the phrase bad apple quite often. I'm not sure who this person is. This is just a picture from a free picture website, but he looks like he's in trouble. When you have a person who is constantly getting in trouble in school, you might say they're a bad apple. Instead of studying, maybe they're doing things that are illegal during the school day or at night. And it doesn't just need to be a student. You might have a cousin who's kind of a bad apple. No matter where they go, they get in trouble. So bad apple is one idiom that we have with the word apple in it. And then there's the city of New York, which is referred to as the Big Apple. I tried to figure out why it was called this, but I didn't have enough time to do all my research. So maybe somebody who's watching can figure out why New York City, the big city in the state of New York, why it's called the Big Apple. I have been to the Big Apple once. I went there once with some friends a very, very, very long time ago. We visited Times Square and we did some other fun things in New York City in the Big Apple. We also have a fruit called a cherry. I like cherry pie, but I don't actually like cherries. Cherry pie is a dessert that you make. You're probably familiar with apple pie, cherry pie. We have a number of different kinds of pie in North America. I really, really like cherry pie. I think because cherry pie has a lot of sugar in it. That's probably why I like it. Hey, when you eat cherries, you have to spit out the pits. So in the center of a cherry, there is a cherry pit. So people will often eat cherries outside and then they'll try to shoot the pit out of their mouth as far as they can. That's an interesting game to play. Sometimes Jen and I and the kids will eat cherries outside and try to spit the pits far away. We have a phrase in English called to cherry pick, and it's a phrase you use in sports when someone, instead of playing defense, they hang out by the goal or the net. It's something that happens quite a bit in hockey. It happens quite a bit in basketball, less so in football or soccer because you're often offsides if you're too far ahead. But in hockey or basketball, if you're cherry picking, it means instead of trying to get the puck from the other team, you're kind of waiting for someone to give you the puck so you can score right by the net. You can sort of see it in this picture here. The red dot would represent someone who's cherry picking. The rest of his team or her team is trying really hard to get the ball, but that person is just waiting for someone to pass it to them so they can get an easy basket. The pear. So I don't actually like pears very much. I will eat them. I actually like pears from a can or from a jar. So sometimes at the store, we'll buy a can of pears. And I like those better probably because there's a lot of sugar in that too. But pears look kind of like an apple, but with an extra piece on the top, and they certainly taste different. We used to have a pear tree on the farm many, many years ago, but we no longer have one. I think eventually I think it might have died. I should go look sometime. It's down the hill. And we have a phrase in English, to go pear-shaped. This is when something goes wrong. When I was starting before the live stream, Mode said, I hope the lesson doesn't go pear-shaped today. So if this lesson went pear-shaped, that would mean that I forgot how to explain things, or people were having trouble connecting, or the connection was bad. That would be something going pear-shaped. I put this up because sometimes you go on a nice trip in the winter in Canada, and then the trip kind of goes pear-shaped because you run into a lot of snow and maybe you get stuck somewhere. So when you say that something goes pear-shaped in English, it means that it goes wrong. It doesn't go the way you were hoping for it to go. And now my favorite fruit. Some of you, I think, mentioned this already in the chat. Bananas are my favorite fruit. At this point in the lesson, I will thank everyone who lives in a country that grows bananas. I really like bananas. I would say I eat one every day, but it's probably more like I eat 25 to 30 bananas a month. I eat about 5 or 6 bananas a week. I try to eat one every day, but sometimes we run out of bananas. In our stores, the bananas are yellow, but sometimes the bananas are green. And then when you buy green bananas, you have to wait a couple of days for them to turn yellow before they are ripe enough to eat. When you eat a banana, you peel the banana, and then you eat what's on the inside. I do really, really like bananas. And they are one of the cheapest fruits to buy in Canada, which seems strange to me because they all come in on a boat from really far away. I'm not sure where the bananas are from that I'm eating right now, but they're usually from somewhere in Central America, usually. And then we have the phrase, to go bananas. So this phrase has a couple of meanings. It means to be really excited. If I walked into my classroom and started throwing candy, my students would go bananas. That means that they would be really excited. They would jump out of their desks and try to grab the candy that's on the floor. They would be really excited. It can also mean, though, to get angry. Like you could say, oh, he was in a car accident and then he just went bananas. Like he was yelling, he was screaming. It's probably more often used as something to describe people who are excited in a positive way, but it can be used the other way as well. And then top banana, second banana. I think I taught this phrase on my other channel. So when you work somewhere, you could say your boss is the top banana. I would probably say top dog, but some people say top banana. And then maybe the boss, there's someone just under the boss. We would call that person the second banana. So some people like being second banana. Some people like being the top banana. I like just being a worker. I don't want to have too much responsibility. And then we have grapes. We actually grow grapes close to our farm. There's an area where grapes can grow. The climate on our farm isn't warm enough, but when you're close to the Great Lakes, there's a microclimate where people can grow grapes. But grapes are yummy to eat. Grapes are, of course, used to make grape juice and and wine. There are a lot of wineries actually close to where I live as well, because they can grow grapes. When you have an area where you can grow grapes, you naturally have wineries, places where wine is made. And grapes grow in a vineyard, by the way. I forgot to mention that with some of the other fruits, but that's okay. Grapes grow in a vineyard and they grow on a vine. So the phrase sour grapes refers to anyone who, they're just annoyed and upset about something. And usually it reminds me of sports fans when their team loses. They can really be sour grapes. They can really be annoyed and they blame it on the referee and they find all kinds of reasons or excuses why their team should have won. So they're sour grapes. It means to be upset about something, but maybe not have a good reason to be upset. So definitely this reminds me of sporting events. An orange. So this is what's known as citrus fruit. Oranges, grapefruits, lemons, tangerines, all of those are considered citrus fruit. Our oranges in Canada, when you buy an orange, it is almost always from Florida. Almost all of the oranges in Canada come from Florida. It's very nice to live close to the United States. It's nice to live close to a country that produces all different kinds of citrus fruit. So I'm sure there are big trucks that regularly drive from Florida to Canada and bring oranges here. I probably drink more orange juice. Yeah, I prefer orange juice over eating an orange. I actually like orange juice quite a bit. An orange is, again, something you need to peel to eat. You don't eat the orange peel, but you do eat the inside. And sometimes the orange is seedless, and sometimes it has seeds in it. So depends on what kind of orange you buy. I like the seedless kind. And we have a phrase in English, comparing apples to oranges. When you compare apples to oranges, it means you're talking about two things that really can't be compared. If you were to talk about the economy in Canada, or yeah, how would I describe this? Let me think of a good way to describe this. I think it's like if you talk about how farming is done in Canada versus farming in, let's say, Japan. It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's done differently, okay? There might be some similarities, but sometimes that might have been a bad example, but sometimes you can't compare things, and it's like comparing apples to oranges. The peach. There are a lot of peaches growing around here. Peaches are very, very yummy. Peaches are quite juicy. When you eat a peach, you often get peach juice on your face when you're eating it, especially if it's really, really ripe. But this is one of my favorite summer fruits. It's really nice in the summer because we get fresh peaches from our neighbor at the farmer's market. And a peach has fuzz on it. So just like when you have a little bit of hair on your face, you have a little bit of fuzz. A peach has really small hairs on it, and we call it peach fuzz. We actually, here's a phrase I don't have in here, but when a young man around age 12 or 13 or 15 or 16, when they start to grow hair on their face, it's very, very fine hair, and we call it peach fuzz. Sorry, not fudge, peach fuzz. We say, oh, he has a little bit of peach fuzz on his face. He's starting to become a man. We describe things that are cool as peachy, okay? Like if someone says to Jen, I need 10 bouquets today. Can I pick them up at 10? Jen could say, oh, yep, that's peachy. That means it's great. That's okay. If someone says, I want to give you $1,000, you can say, that's peachy. That's just peachy. It means really cool. It means really exciting. It means something that you like. Kiwi. So kiwi is an interesting fruit. Apparently you can eat the skin, but I don't like the skin. When we buy kiwis, I often peel them. I actually peel the kiwi. Did I say peaches? Kiwi. When we get kiwi, I peel the kiwi. I find kiwis taste a little bit like strawberries. I really, really like kiwis. Now, kiwi is also a word we use to talk about people from New Zealand. People from New Zealand often refer to themselves as Kiwis. This is a guy named, his YouTube channel is called How to Dad, and he makes really, really funny videos about being a parent. He's a Kiwi. He's someone who's from the country of New Zealand. And then here we have the lemon. So the lemon is an interesting citrus fruit. Not only is it used, well, not a lot of people eat lemons. Maybe I should start by saying that. Not a lot of people eat lemons, but people use lemons in a lot of recipes. People make a lot of things out of lemons. They make lemonade. They make iced tea with lemon flavoring. If you go to a bar, a lot of alcoholic drinks will have slice of lemon in it. In restaurants in Canada, when you ask for water, it